Good morning. My name is Rob Thacker. I'm the music director here at St. John's. Please join me in singing our gathering hymn for this month, number 349, We Gather Together. Please rise and embody your spirit. We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Though sorrow and gladness we find now in our living, we sing the hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation, when come to human care and hope, then we are free.
Our chalice lighting comes today through the magic of video from the guest minister, Misha Sanders.
Hi, Unitarian Universalist friends in Cincinnati. Thank you for letting me share worship with you this morning. I have already lit my little chalice right here, and you all are about to do the same in the sanctuary. These chalice lighting words are by my colleague, the Reverend Sharon Wiley. For millennia, people have gathered together to hear stories, to root for the underdog, to jeer the evil and the unkind. We see in our stories mirrors to our own lives where we hope good things will happen to good people and that evil will be vanquished. This morning, we gather for story, for cheering and jeering, for hope and for justice. May this ancient story shed new light on our own lives, and may we know ourselves connected to millions of listeners who have come before us and millions of listeners who will come after. Let us worship together. Hi, Unitarian Universalist friends. Thank you for letting me share worship with you this evening.
In case you didn't get the message the first time around. Welcome everyone here in the sanctuary and online in your homes or wherever you may be. We welcome to St. John's Unitarian Universalist Church. We welcome everyone as inclusiveness is a value, and we are made richer by the diversity of our members. We were founded greater than 200 years ago as a German congregational church. Prior to World War I, we changed language from German to English. Then after that, we became Unitarian about 100 years ago. This church has been involved in events of the day throughout its existence. One example is during a cholera epidemic, helping to found what became Beach Acres, and Debbie Combs will tell you much more about the history. But I'd like to leave you with a Chinese proverb. It is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. And our next hymn is number 194, Faith is a Forest. And this is written by somebody I knew. Shelley Jackson Denham was a member of First Church for many years. And then she worked at the Mountain in North Carolina. So she wrote this song, and it's to a Chinese hymn. And Stephen is going to play it through because it's a little bit, it's Oriental. Please join me in our affirmation. This is the mission of our church, the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands. Now is a special time of our service. We put stones for joys and concerns and sorrows. And if you have something, you may come up. If you have something that you'd like spoken aloud, please fill out a card. There's some on the table, and I think there's some back in the on various seats. So now is the time for joys and concerns. for all those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken, an egg of possibility. And we have a joy, a blessing, please, for our Found House guests who are arriving tonight, and for the many volunteers who embody love. And now let's see if I can do this. And there are none online. Okay. And for our meditation, keep trying to keep it up and it keeps hiding on me. Okay, this meditation is entitled Nourished and Transformed, and it was written by Lisa Garcia Sampson. Spirit of life and love, spirit that lives within us and between us and among us right now. Within this beloved community and in our work for collective liberation, may we continue to weave the web of trust and care to keep our bodies safe. But more than that, may our bodies be the site of healing, joy, and freedom. May we refuse to let our spirits be depleted and hardened by the forces of hate. Instead, may we open ourselves to be nourished and transformed by the movement for justice, knowing that our collective story is not what we are fighting against, but what we are fighting for. For ours is the work of creation. Ours is the work of inviting people into an irresistible movement, rooted in our belief that a new world is possible. And then in the center of our work is love and joy and the spirit of abundance. These are the things we are fighting for, and these are the things we are fighting with. May we know deep in our bones that this is the call of our faith. Amen, and blessed be. And we have a video from Misha Sanders for the story for all ages. So if any children or anybody would like to come up and maybe sit in these first seats.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Learn, your go-to channel to stand up for yourself and others. Join me for today's read aloud, by Elizabeth Estrada. This book teaches us to embrace our differences and stand up for others. Click the link in the description to purchase this book for your home or school library. I am not the same as you. You're not the same as me. For everyone is different, and sometimes we won't agree. We come in many shades of skin, black, brown, tan, or white. My face is not like yours, and that's perfectly all right. We may speak different languages and come from foreign lands, or we might talk in different accents that are hard to understand. The foods we like can vary from savory to sweet, with dishes that you might enjoy, but I might never eat. There's rich and poor among us, and also young and old. Some might prefer the weather hot or really like the cold. We come in different shapes and sizes, like round or super lean, or short or tall or none of them, but somewhere in between. Some of us have hearing aids or have poor eyesight. It doesn't matter. We're all the same. There's no wrong or right. You might have trouble focusing, or you're really, really smart. You could be good at science, math, or excellent at art. And some are quite athletic, always running here and there, while others may have a handicap and they get to use a wheelchair. The world is full of differences. We see them every day. We're not all alike, and that's a good thing. You're special in your own way. But though we might be different, there is no excuse for hate. Discrimination is a thing I'll never tolerate. I just cannot stay in silence when I know I have a choice. I will tackle an injustice with a clear and kind voice. I can ask the person to stop who is hateful from within and doesn't see others but for the color of their skin. Or letting an adult know of a bully who is full of threats and thinks they have the right to take whatever they can get. I can walk away from the person who is being hurtful and unkind, who thinks that they're superior in body or in mind. I will speak up for a stranger. I will speak up for a friend, for myself and all my family. On that, you can depend. And I'll battle for my principles in all that I believe. With a bit of courage, who knows what I'll achieve? As the world is made for everyone and shouldn't be unfair, I speak up against injustice because I truly care. It takes courage to stand up for others. You can be an upstander. Make sure to check out the other social and emotional read-alouds on this.
Oh, now you can hear me. So what did you think of the story? Got any opinions? Any thoughts? I got a thumbs up. Who knows what tolerate means? Iris? Well, tolerance is when you allow other people to have their own opinions and whatnot. But she said she's not going to tolerate things like hate and discrimination and whatever. So you can have tolerance for people's opinions and their foods and their color of their skin and their whatever else is different from you or even the same as you, even if, they're being annoying. But there are some things we won't tolerate. Does that make sense? Any other words we want to say? How about courage? Who has courage in here? Anybody? Hey! At least we all have courage sometimes. But anyhow, so we're going to sing the children out to their classes. They're going downstairs. All right, singing them out to go downstairs. May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart go love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. May your mind be open to new learning. May your And now is the time for the offertory, where we give to support this congregation. I have two readings picked by Reverend Misha for this service. The first one is called Hopefulness in Bad Times, written by Howard Zinn. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act, in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents, and to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory. And the second one is called Revolutionary Love, written by Dana Edwards. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my faith. My faith that our collective love, united, can drown out the evils of empire and hate and greed. Together, we create a love energy more powerful than any force of oppression. Because when two or more people are gathered side by side, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, the force of love ignites liberation. Revolutionary love calls us to know ourselves deeply, see God in the stranger, find beauty in the imperfect. Revolutionary love calls us to find the divine in dirt, the holy in the heartache, and the sacred in the scars. Revolutionary love calls us out and then back in. Revolutionary love calls us to be better and do better. Revolutionary love calls us to heal and hold each other, because none of us would be here if it weren't for our faith in each other.
Okay, so spoiler alert, or long story short, depending on if you're sticking around or if you might have to leave early. This is a period piece. It's from Hebrew scripture, in which Esther becomes the unlikely queen. Her people are saved from certain death, and they all lived happily ever after, the end. But it was never guaranteed to go down like that. In fact, not only was there no guarantee, but it was a highly unlikely outcome to a highly unlikely story. You see, the Persian king, Ahasuerus, had just had his queen banished. Now, we don't know exactly what that meant, where she was sent away to, whether or not that was maybe a relatively mess-free euphemism for something a whole lot more permanent. We only know that he had ordered her gone, and so gone she was. And from the information we are given, her only infraction had been that she had finally had enough of being his trophy wife, his favorite sex slave, and she had had the audacity to say, no, not tonight. When toward the end of a 7-day-long drunken party, the all sheets to the wind king had ordered servants to go fetch her to entertain his lascivious and equally inebriated guests. Now, this week-long party that they were in the middle of was at the end of a 180-day visit from all of the political elite of the land, and all of the many women of the king's harem were tired. And it is left to our imaginations why. So, with Queen Vashti gone, the king suddenly had a prime opening in his harem. So, because absolute power corrupts absolutely, he listened to a lot of advisors, and they came up with a plan to gather young women from all over the kingdom and add them to his cloistered and very much enslaved harem of women. It seems that a posse of men literally went out into the streets of all of the provinces of the kingdom, just started collecting as many pretty girls as they could find, asking them no questions whatsoever about their lives, about the families and the friends that they were being forced to leave behind with no notice. Just took them if they were deemed attractive enough and young enough. And among the many young women picked up in this gathering of female human property was a young Jewish girl named Esther. Already enslaved, her people had been brought to that land in chains already. Her parents had been long dead, and she was being raised by her cousin, her older cousin Mordecai, also enslaved. So, oppression upon oppression. This young enslaved woman, taken from her home, from the only family she has, and is shoved roughly in with countless other bewildered and despairing young women into the courts of the king to be groomed for a different kind of slavery. And it just so happens that Esther's physical appearance allows her to pass for Persian if she chooses to. Out of terror, no doubt, Esther says nothing of her Jewish heritage and goes with the flow and tries to simply survive. At this time, on the outside of the palace walls, having traveled from his home to be as close to Esther as possible, because he's made a vow to always take care of her, cousin Mordecai sits in mourning in the traditional sackcloth and ashes. A year passes. Outside the walls, the world for the enslaved Jewish folks is falling apart because their captivity, which for years had been seen by the Persians as good for the kingdom, had started to turn a little sour. And Persians in power were beginning to blame the Jewish people for all that was wrong in their world, as though the oppressed could ever have that kind of power. But for reasons really unspecified, other than pride and anger about personal grievances, I do dislike how familiar that feels in our current day and age. Nothing but pride and personal grievances. Men in positions of power were calling for the death of all the oppressed enslaved class, in this case, the Jews. Meanwhile, still, cousin Mordecai has come to the wall of the palace every day to be as close to his beloved Esther as he can. He has lived in sackcloth and ashes and has gotten on the very last nerve of some of the powerful people who were tired of him being a constant wailing eyesore in their nice, clean, fancy Capitol Boulevard. Inside the palace walls during this year, in harem living quarters, Esther has had quite an eventful year. She had become the unlikely favorite of the king, and he had chosen her for his queen. And Esther, because she was pretty interested in not being hanged for being a Jew, they were literally building gallows all over the nation for the express purpose of killing her entire race of people. She kept quiet about who she was and kept on passing for Persian. And Mordecai kept his vigil outside the wall. And he kept sending her messages as often as he could that he loved her, and he was working without ceasing to secure her safety. He sent them via a cadre of eunuchs, they're called, who served inside the palace but came and went with more freedom than the women. Here's the interesting thing about those eunuchs. The eunuchs were an entire class of enslaved men, given more freedom than the enslaved women, but not by much. They were men who mostly had been forced into genital mutilation before puberty, rendering them feminized, sterile, more docile, less physically strong than most other men, ostensibly, and more easily controllable. And they not only served as sex slaves on occasion themselves, but they were in charge of taking care of the harem of women. They were essentially a created third gender, a very visible gender-queer population of their day. Some accounts indicate that one of the many reasons for their forced gender-blurring surgeries was to make it so they were shunned by family that they did have, unable to create more, thereby easier to get rid of with no one left to ask questions if they caused any trouble. Now let me be clear that although the parallels are worth drawing, I am not with any part of my soul suggesting that our genderqueer and trans beloveds have been forced into anything for nefarious purposes where their healthcare is concerned. Because as we know, the opposite of allowing them to be who they are and to have the healthcare and the surgeries and whatever they need to be who they are, the opposite of allowing that is much more likely to happen in our day and age. That's an aside worth noting and making central, because you are valid no matter where you fall on the glorious non-binary gender spectrum, and you are whole and holy and good just the way you are. I hope we're quite clear on that. Back to the story then. So it was these eunuchs, this precious, beloved, feminized, genderqueer men who, I am not kidding, were put in charge of the cosmetology program in the harem. They took care of the skincare, the wardrobe, the hair, and the makeup needs of the women. How fitting, right? I swear they did not teach us that part of the story in my Pentecostal Sunday school when I was growing up. And so the messages were passed between the enslaved Jews and the enslaved women via the enslaved genderqueer men. And Mordecai delivered this message to Esther. It was exactly this from the book of Esther, chapter 4, beginning in verse 13. Do not think that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silence at such a time as this, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another quarter, but you and your father's family will perish. Who knows? Perhaps you have been brought into the kingdom for just such a time as this. Who knows? I love it that Mordecai never once mentioned a calling from God. In fact, Esther is the most humanist book of Jewish or Christian scripture, with not a single mention of God in the entire thing, front to back. You can look it up. None whatsoever. And so if If Mordecai was a God-fearing Jew, and not just Jewish by ethnicity only, he might not have been on speaking terms with the Lord right about then. Elohim had not seemed to be doing much for his people lately. And so Mordecai told his beloved Esther, here's the thing, beloved. Who knows? We have no idea if this will work. But we sure as heck know that keeping silent isn't going to get us anywhere good. None of us. And maybe, at least there's a chance, right? Maybe you can do something to help yourself and save your people if you use the gifts you have been given, even in this horrible place you did not choose. And speak up. Esther didn't choose to be queen. That was a fancy title for sex slave. Esther didn't choose to be the king's favorite for sure, because heaven only knows what becoming the favorite of a man like that even entailed for Esther. She didn't ask for any of this, and she had no obligation whatsoever to put her neck on the line and ask the king for any favors. She knew from Queen Vashti's example what could happen to anyone, even the queen, if you caught the king in a foul mood. No one voluntarily went before the king to take that risk. But who knows, Esther? And at this point, what do you have to lose? And so after receiving her beloved cousin Mordecai's messages, Esther deeply considered her options, and she shrugged and said, okay, if I perish, I perish, but I'll do it. I'm going to go in and see the king. And that's what she did. She used the only power that women had to use, her beauty and her body. And she made sure the king wanted to keep her coming back again and again, over and over, night after night, until one night she finally mustered up all her courage to say to him, listen, these people that you're leaning toward calling for the genocide of, they're my people. They're me. If my people are killed, I will be killed with them because I am a Jew. Sweetheart, I know you're very busy. But do you think maybe as a favor to your wife, you might just consider calling the whole thing off? And I know that all of our hearts are with Palestinians to whom this horror is happening right now. And the nuance and the cognitive dissonance and the divisions among nations and cultures and families about who sides with whom now in the light of history, it's hard to hear. That's also worth acknowledging here today. But what happened in the story of Esther, pardon my humanity there, what happened in the story of Esther is that when she asked the king for a ceasefire, he listened. He did it. And so the story goes on quite interestingly and karmically appropriate from there. And because of Esther's courage, her people were spared genocide that time around. But man, that could have gone a whole lot of ways, couldn't it? There was a power grab, a political upheaval, a powder keg of oppression happening right inside the king's palace, as well as throughout the whole land. There were queer slaves and female slaves, both categorically denied reproductive choice, by the way. And slaves being persecuted for their religion, their ethnicity, and their culture all at once. And of course, there were intersections of people who fell into more than one or all of these categories. And no one had a guarantee of any kind of positive outcome. But they all knew that somebody had to do something. They were dying. Their loved ones were disappearing. Nobody could have made a difference without the support of one another. So I wonder, beloveds, where we might fit into the powder keg of oppression happening right now inside our beautiful palaces. I wonder about our own intersections of privilege and oppression that bind us together and sometimes tear us apart. I wonder about the transgender children who cannot get their medications in many states already, and those restrictions will surely tighten in the months and years to come. I wonder about the women and trans men and non-binary womb-having people in many states already being denied access to reproductive health care, and those restrictions will surely tighten in the months and years to come. I wonder about this precious Jewish folks who are being targeted by anti-Semitism, even as they scream, "Not in our names," in solidarity with the precious Palestinian people of Gaza. And those attacks will surely grow in the months and years to come. I wonder what our beloved, complicated, frightened, frightening nation is going to do about, well, anything and everything. And those answers will surely change in the months and years to come. And of course, I wonder, as I think we all do, how's this all going to turn out? And I wonder, who knows, maybe even though we didn't ask for any of this, I wonder if maybe right here, right now, for such a time as this, we have been called into the conversation. I wonder if it is our interdependence upon one another that might be the thing that makes all the difference. You see, it wasn't only Esther's courageous choice. It was a coalition of people who helped her find her courage and prepare and hone her gifts and walk boldly into that throne room. Esther was not empowered, never empowered by others in positions of power, but by others in intersecting positions of subjugation and oppression. Your beloved community of believers right there in Cincinnati have already done a lot of work to be the change you want to see in the world. I know that. And you just keep showing up and doing it. I know that. There was a time for us all to rise as one with our LGBTQIA siblings and demand equality in law. And we did that. And here we are again. And we have worked tirelessly for generations for the rights of women, for reproductive choice, and for a place of unequivocal equality at the table. And here we are again. We have risen in solidarity with our Muslim and our Jewish siblings and said we worship the same source and all love is one love. And here we are again. And so, right here, right now, for a body of believers in love and in each other who have tried for so long to get so many things right despite all the odds, who knows? Perhaps we were brought into the conversation for such a time as this. For such a time when organizers for reproductive justice and trans rights might need a safe space to hold some meetings. For a time when reputable organizations need real, tangible support for endangered people, the kind of support with dollar signs attached to it. For such a time when perhaps we, with our own intersections of privilege and oppression all bundled together not so neatly, might be called to be the messengers between the wall outside and that harem curtain. To open up our own WhatsApp or Signal channels for encrypted communication, for an underground safety of network of safety and mutual aid. And maybe, beloveds, maybe we won't be the ones leading the charge, but instead the ones heating up the bathwater for the ones who are about to step out in front of the king and put it all on the line. The ones saying, here, use our worship space to organize your rally and we will provide snacks and water and art supplies for your signs. How can we help? So what gifts? What gifts, maybe even unlikely ones or ones you didn't choose at all, can you bring to such a time as this? I'll confess sometimes it's hard for me to know. I really just want to sit and weep and listen to someone who lives inside a black, a brown, a queer, or a disabled body get up in the pulpit, because I'm not sure what a straight, cisgender U.S. American white woman has to add to this fight. I had my vote, and I used it. And it seems like that was futile today, but I did it anyway, and so did most of you. But for such a time as this, right here, right now, I still have my voice. I still have my promise to those who are in this fight, because your circumstances do not give you any choice in the matter. You do not stand alone. We have this choice right now. We can say loud and clear that Palestinians are our human family. We can simultaneously say loud and clear no to the evil resurgence of anti-Semitism. We can let trans kids and all womb-having people know that they are whole, holy, and have a right to bodily autonomy and are worthy of our fiercest protection. We can still say that Black lives matter and that indigenous rights are the true law of the land we live on, and that immigration is natural and necessary and no human being is an alien. We can still resist and say not on our watch to the very real threat of fascism taking our democracy from us. Who knows? There never was a mention of God or calling or a sure victory or an outcome that would make it all seem worthwhile. But that's the story of life, isn't it? And we live it anyway. If I perish, I perish. I mean, we all will eventually anyway, right? But what about right now? What if maybe we're called to the kingdom for just such a time as this? What if it is your gift that changes the heart of someone in power? Maybe, who knows? It could happen. And it would not be a precedent. So may we listen to the callings of our souls. May we truly live into those callings with whatever time we have left. May we be fully present right here, right now. May we live and love fiercely, like people left with nothing left to lose. But with every beautiful thing we can imagine together to gain. May it be so. May we be the ones to make it so. Ashe and Amen. Okay, so spoiler alert, or long story short, depending on if you're sticking around or if you...
And now's the time for announcements. What's going on in the future? First off, Found House, we will have residents here, families living here for the next week. Talk to Wanda Crawford see if she needs anything more to make this week happen. The other announcements are in your bulletin. Talk to Ron Kreischer if you were interested in making sure we have flowers every week, because he could use some help. Circle Supper signups so we can keep our community together. Talk to Marilyn Schuster. Wrapping party, we're talking about Christmas already and it's not even Thanksgiving. But I don't like that. I don't want to talk about Christmas till after Thanksgiving. But there's an announcement about a wrapping party on December 13th in Santa's Kitchen. So we'll have baked goods to share, and this will be a fundraiser for the church. Thanksgiving potluck is on Thanksgiving Day. Anybody who would like to drop in, and for any part during the whole time, it's in your bulletin. Is there any other announcements from anyone? All right. So our next hymn is number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Please rise. Love will guide us, peace will stride us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide
As Reverend Misha Sanders reads us our benediction, I will extinguish the chalice, which means go out in the world and do the best you can.
Today, beloved friends. Our words of benediction are by Eileen Carpeles. As we part now from one another, let these be our thoughts. If that which is holy lies within the human person, and if the greatest power in the world shines flickering and uncertain from each individual heart, then it is easy to see the value of human associations dedicated to nurturing that light, the couple, the family, the religious community. For the power of good in any one of us must at times waver. But when a group together is dedicated to nurturing the power of good, it is rare for the light to grow dim in all individuals at the same time. So we borrow courage and wisdom from one another to warm us and keep us until we are together again.
Innocent people gathered.